Joe, thinking about travel, which a lot of us aren't doing at this moment in time, but as people are watching it down the line, the question does come up: how much of how much of your job does require travel, and what do you use to get around? Do you use a dog, or work with a dog, or a cane, or both?
So I'm a cane user right now. I had a guide dog for 8 years. So when I was at Humana and at the last year of college, I had a guide dog, and it was great. It was really, I mean, that that bond is amazing. If you're out there listening, you've never done it. I mean, it really is a special thing, and but it's also hard when you lose them. Uh, it's emotional. You know, you go through. At least for me, it was. I mean, I think everybody deals with it differently, but it was difficult. It's kind of like losing a kid or something. You know, um, I'm using it back to Kane, and so the last like three, actually since I've been at APH, the last 4 years I've had a cane. It was kind of interesting. My guide dog came with me on my interview, and then she passed away the day I actually got the job offer, which was interesting. So it
Sure.
was kind of bittersweet. Um, but so I started here, and I was like, well, I should go get a dog again, and but with Uber and Lyft, I mean, the landscape has changed so much. As
Yes.
technology grows, Uber, Lyft, the bus, I can pretty much get anywhere I need to be and not have to, not feel unsafe. So I mean, one of the reasons I got a guide dog in the beginning was because I was doing so much walking in unfamiliar territories that I wanted to be fast and I wanted to do things at a quick pace. And my life has changed. I'm not a discoverer anymore. I've kind of got I'm kind of set. I got my
Yeah.
routine, and so when we do travel, like, so when I go to the Consumer Electronics Show, which is in Vegas, I live in Louisville. I don't think we mentioned that. so,
Right.
uh, so when we go to like Las Vegas, for example, that's a new city, but I feel confident enough. I'm a confident enough cane user. I really feel with GPS, with Uber and Lyft, I can navigate fairly well. And I think I would be still faster with a dog, but um, I guess the older in life I get, it's like there's a lot of things that come with the dog too. So uh, the indoor navigation, I've kind of been with APH. I've been kind of on the front line with that, with Nearby Explorer and then Access Explorer taking over. I've been kind of watching that and watching the progress, and I think we're very close to seeing a huge transformation in indoor navigation and how we navigate indoors as well. So I think with all these things coming, and now of course with COVID, where I'm just not traveling hardly at all. I really think the cane probably will be where I stay for a while,
Sure.
just because I am, I feel fairly confident with it. So, um, yeah, I mean, who knows when the world opens back up? I mean, but I love having all the tools we have, and I just think as a blind person, it keeps getting better. I've used other services like Ira to also help
Yes.
navigate. Um, the only concern I have with using Ira long term or in certain situations is, the cell phone connection. I just wonder how great that's going to. I've had issues where the cell networks just can't support it at this point. So with 5G
Yeah.
coming, maybe that changes. But that's been my one thing. Where I don't want to ever have to get in a situation where I'm relying on something like that because you just don't know what your connection is going to be like.
No, and I agree. I attended CSUN when it was last in San Diego 2 years ago, and I had my phone out, my glasses out with Ira, and it just inside nothing. I couldn't get Ira to save my life. So yeah, so it's one of many things we put in our toolkit. And so
Exactly. Exactly.
thank you. Thinking about the job search in general, we've got a lot of young people who are viewing this, and a lot of active job seekers, and they might feel discouraged about the job search, that they've been denied one or two or three job interviews when they thought they were qualified. Do you have advice, drawing on your own experience, for these folks?
Yeah. So I never. I think you just have to. It's a confidence thing, like you just keep going at it. Like if someone tells you no, you feel you can do the job. You continue at it. Like I remember when I was going to college, I wanted to do radio. That was the thing that I wanted to do for whatever reason. And it's funny how my life has turned out because I'm far from radio at this point. But as but I had to learn that myself. I was in college and I just learned that okay, radio isn't for me. So now what? And I
Right.
transitioned over to a different degree. But where I'm going with that is sometimes people will try to steer you in a direction that they want you to go in. If you have something in mind that you want to do, don't let it stop you. Just keep trying, and eventually you'll either find an avenue or you'll find something different. But I for me, I never disclosed I was blind on my resume. I always tried to surprise people at the interview and just see how it goes. So real fast, I'll tell you a quick story. I went to Denver. I flew to Denver for a job with IBM. It was an interview with IBM, and I never disclosed I was blind. And I walked in, and the lady says, "There's a lot of travel with this job." And I said, "Yeah, I'm from Indianapolis," because I just told her where flew from. Anyway, and she said, "Okay." I sat down, and there was about 30 people that came in that were interviewing for the same job. And guess what? She never asked to those people or told to those people that there was a lot of travel with this job.
Travel.
She completely told me that because I was blind, and but I wanted her to know that that hey, I've traveled here. So I think it's really just having that confidence. I ended up not getting that job, but being told no is not a bad thing. You learn from each interview, learn from everything that you do, grow from it, and don't let it discourage you. Because it is easy to give up, and I've been there. That when I got rejected from Apple, circling back to that real fast.
Yeah.
I mean, it took me 6 months to filling out applications to get another interview, and it was very heartbreaking and very difficult. But I said I really want to do this. I want to work. I want to do something. And so I mean, a lot of times it's just patience and never stop networking. So I think it's important. No matter what you do, to get out in your community, be involved with something that you have a passion for, whether it be a club, whether it be something that gets you involved with people in the community, because networking is as I've grown in my career, it's it's so underrated. Like people, I mean, I'll meet someone and they may call me and say, "Do you know somebody for this? Who could do this job?" And so I think networking is very important.
Let's talk about that for a minute. And thank you. That's really good advice. Thinking about networking, how has networking really shaped and molded you as a person to get you where you're at? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, so I'll just start kind of at college, like because in high school I don't really think I networked very well. Like I didn't really understand the concept, and you're around people that you grew up all your life. So when I first got out into the world at Ball State, I started. I was involved with a radio club. I was involved with the Lions Club, and I was still involved with a little bit with 4-H. So I had a lot of different things I was doing at the time, and my first job. So after I got denied at Apple, I was living in Muncie at the time, still around Ball State, and the first job I ever got was because I met someone out at a career fair, and they had a job for an independent living older blind coordinator, it's called, and they called me up and said, "Hey, would you submit your resume? Because I think you'd be good at this job." And it was the owner of the company, and I'd met her at a career fair, and she just happened to remember me, and so I think when you network like that, that kind of taught me, like, if I keep involved and stay involved, even when I'm on hard times, like someone will remember, like someone will remember me, or remember you in a sense if you're listening. So I mean, I think just being yourself, being personable, maybe being funny or whatever your personality is, if
Yeah.
it's they're going to remember you. So I think just as many friends as you can make or as many contacts as you can make, uh, don't hold yourself back on that.
I couldn't agree more. And thinking about your career span, like mine, for the past 2 decades, I've worked in over 5 different career paths. And thinking about those who are watching who might be mid-career, changing jobs from the same field to the same field, or from one field to another, what advice would you have for those transitioning in their mid-career?
It can be scary, right? I mean,
Right.
like I think about my new career, and I was very comfortable with doing quality assurance. Going to global innovations, I'm a little, I wouldn't say uncomfortable, but it's just nerve wracking because I don't know. It's a lot of unknown, and I think anybody who's career changing. I mean, Richard, I think you would probably agree. You get nervous because what if you get into a position and something's inaccessible, or
Right.
something's harder. I mean, there are a lot of factors, but I would just say, I think for me though, the risks are less than the rewards. You know what I mean? Like the
Right.
rewards are going to outweigh the risk. So I I would just say stay positive, and we all, I think the really hard part is, as a blind person, and when you're I think people try to lock you into a position. So they say, okay, here's a job for you. We think you can do this, or you get a job, and it's in a company, and you get that job, and I think sometimes people just expect you to stay there. And I think taking that risk and growing or changing positions or whatever it may be in your line of work is important, because I think it shows people that we're just like everyone else. We want to do the best we can, and
Yeah.
um, we want the best thing possible for us. So I would just say, just stay confident, stay strong, and be willing to adapt. So if you haven't ever used something like Seeing AI or Be My Eyes or Ira or something, you know, learn the tools, and if it's just like one thing that's maybe making that job inaccessible, maybe that makes that job accessible. So be willing to sort of adapt from maybe something that you haven't done before or haven't used before.
I think you hit it right on the head. I've had, for the first 10 years, I was a rehabilitation counselor, and people said, "Oh, why are you leaving that job? You're leaving a state job." "Well, because I'm curious. I want to try other things." And they thought I was crazy. Whether I was blind or not, they just thought I was crazy. So, but having the curiosity and that dream to do other things, I think is a drive we all have, no matter what your vision loss or disability is. Joe, talk with us about, if you had to pick one thing, what's the most challenging part of your current job, and then to follow up with that, what do you like the most about your job that you're going to miss?
The hardest part about my job right now is looking for visual issues. So I'm totally blind. So like Richard, like I know you have a little vision. I could use you,
Right.
because when I'm doing my job, let's say there's text issues. Like the screen reader's not going to catch that. You're
The
not going to
formatting.
know if something's off centered or something
Yeah.
in an app. Like in Word you can tell. Like it's great because you can tell exactly where something is on the screen. You don't get that information sometimes in an application. So especially depending on the operating system. So that kind of is a challenge, because like I'll have to either have someone actually look at it, and it kind of just makes me feel like even though I can do everything else, I can do the screen reader testing, I can do the user interface as far as is this good or not. I still get sometimes annoyed, not annoyed, that's probably not the right word, but just frustrated that I can't just look at the screen and go, okay, this isn't right. I have to have someone with some sight like look at that and tell. So I think that's a challenge
Yeah.
for me. I've gotten around it and I just kind of accept it, but it is kind of um, it does bother me, like at
Yeah.
times. But on the flip side, the most I'm a glass half full kind of person, so I always try to think positively.
Sure.
So on the flip side, the funnest thing probably the about my job is when we get an app out there and hearing feedback from teachers or from students that they use the app every day or that it's made an impact. Uh, so we do an app called Talking Typer, and we put it out on the iPhone. And I was actually at a convention conference, I think, one year. And it was a National Federation for the Blind convention, and somebody came up to me and they said, it was a parent, and they came up and said that their 6-year-old learned how to type with a Bluetooth keyboard on the iPhone using Talking Typer. And for me, that was like, that's what I want to hear. Like that was really rewarding. And so like,
Right.
whenever I get feedback like that, it's it's really fun. Sometimes I'm on email lists with customers and like hearing them talk about like successful, things they've had either using it on the job like a braille display to do a job or get a job, that's really rewarding, to know that they picked your braille display to do their work is pretty neat to hear and know, so i think I think those things are rewarding, and also for me just the ability to have conversations with Google, Apple, Microsoft. So a few years ago, I got to go out to Microsoft and have a lot of input on Narrator, and that was a lot of fun. Just to be able to be in that position.
That's awesome. And for those watching, Narrator is the default screen reader built into Windows 10, which is really awesome.
Yeah, sorry, I should have said that. The really neat thing about where we've come, and Richard will remember this, is as a blind person, I remember being in college, and then when I got my first apartment when I moved to Louisville, I had Windows. And one reason I switched to Mac at the time was you could not reformat your machine on your own. So Windows would not talk you through the setup instructions. And it used to frustrate me so so much because I had to pay somebody $150 to reformat my machine, and that eventually led me over to the Mac, and so like seeing that Microsoft, and just not just Microsoft, but all these tech companies have started paying attention to accessibility is really neat to see right out of the box. We don't have to pay extra if you don't want to. So